We're coming to the end of a very wonderful Labor Day weekend retreat. I hope everyone is enjoying it as much as I'm enjoying it. It's been so nice to have dear, loving Brother Monk here. You don't realize how much we long to have the company of our brother monks. And what a great joy it is when they come and visit, when we go and visit and everything. So it's really a wonderful opportunity. Swamiji gave 3 different topics. When I asked him about the retreat, I kind of put them together into this idea of Vedanta in practice, because it seemed to be kind of a theme. So I wanted to talk a little bit about practical Vedanta. And of course, whenever we talk about practical Vedanta, we think of Swamiji. Swami Vivekananda, in some sense, was born for that purpose, to make Vedanta practical, to put it into practice, to see it functioning, to see it as the ground, to see it as the operating force behind everything in society, in the individual life, family life, every possible way, to see this Vedanta put into practical use. So this is why we have our dual motto. This Vedanta has to be the ground for our own individual spiritual life, and also it'll be the greatest benefit to society if it can be utilized that way. So I wanted to speak about this practical Vedanta and speak about Swamiji a little bit. Swamiji is the one who is responsible for me being here. Yeah. He's our Senapati and I'm his recruit. He's our commander-in-chief. Sometimes there are recruiting centers and we go to that recruiting center, but he got me by himself, all alone. Yeah. I simply had to read a little bit of teachings of Swami Vivekananda, a small little book, and I was ready to sign up. So I understand the tremendous power behind Swamiji's words because his personality was there and his realization was there. Sometimes we don't give enough credit to personality. This is really the beauty of our tradition, is not simply the realizations of Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother and Swamiji, but how that divinity shone through such stupendous personalities, the towering personalities. There's this combination of Holy Mother's sweetness and Thakur's love and Swamiji's strength that is just astounding. So it was this combination of Swamiji's personality and Swamiji's brilliance, his head and his heart, that just bowled me over. So I have tremendous respect and love for Swamiji. When we say Swamiji, we don't mean to exclude anybody. You know, I mentioned very often this book that I've been reading, these lectures and articles by Swami Atmajnananda Maharaj. And he makes a very strong and compelling case that Swamiji had not a single idea that wasn't from Sri Ramakrishna. And you know, a lot of people have doubts about that. Even his brother disciples at one point had some doubts about that. But really, if we analyze very carefully, we see that he really was just the instrument. Sri Ramakrishna lived in Swamiji. You know that incident towards the end of Thakur's life, when just touching him and going into samadhi, Swamiji losing outer consciousness, and then when they both came to ordinary consciousness, tears were in Thakur's eyes. Now, why was he crying? Some people ask that. Why was he crying? Did he lose anything? Anybody? This is an interactive session. Anybody? Why? Somebody asked that. Why should he cry? That he lost? He said, "Now I'm a penniless fakir." Why should he cry because of that? Tears of joy. There's another thing from Swami Atmajnananda. He said that tears of joy, that now he knew that his beloved disciple would have that power to carry this message throughout the world. And he gave him so many specific instructions that we only know because of the way Swamiji carried them out. Otherwise, no one else was present. Yeah, Thakur and Swamiji side by side, day after day in Kashipur. As much as Thakur was able to speak in those days for hours every day, he would give him instructions how to keep the group together, how to plan for the future monastery and everything like that. So when we talk about, say, Swamiji made a very nice point, the Yoga Seva of Sri Ramakrishna, we'll generally think of it in terms of Swamiji, but it goes right back to Sri Ramakrishna. Yeah, definitely. That incident with that Jive Doya is so fascinating that when they all left the room, nobody was the least bit excited about it except Swamiji. Of course, he was Narendra at the time. He said, "Did you hear what Thakur said?" They said, "What did he say?" This Jive Doya said, "Yeah, we heard it." He said, "But don't you see? Don't you see there's a radical explanation bringing in devotion into this path of Advaita Vedanta?" He said, "If the Divine Mother ever gives me a chance, I'll spread this throughout the world." So we see, and Holy Mother, Swamiji wouldn't do anything without getting Holy Mother's permission. She had the slightest objection, that was the end of it. She was the last final word for that. So anyhow, this is all about, when we talk about Swamiji's practical Vedanta, we're talking about the whole tradition. And so we can say also Thakur was born for that purpose. That before that, Swamiji used to complain that this wonderful gem of Advaita Vedanta had been kept hidden in mountain caves and forests only for yogis and everything. People wondered why he gave this highest knowledge in the West to people who didn't know anything about Vedanta at that time. But he said, yes, we'll spread everything broadcast. Those who can understand it will understand it. Those who can't will at least have heard about it. Another very nice idea. It reminds me of Swami Vijnananandaji. That people would ask him, why do you give initiation to such young kids? Will they be able to really grasp it? Will they know what they've been given? He said, they may not understand it now, but when they're older, they will. It's if you give somebody a nice thing and they keep it in their pocket, then years later they'll pull it and say, oh, look what I have. How wonderful it is. So Swamiji wanted to give the very highest teachings of Advaita Vedanta, not contrary to devotion. This is also something we have to understand, that this Advaita, this knowledge of oneness, is the foundation for devotion. If it's a dualistic type of devotion, when there's just a perfect separation between the individual and God, how do we bridge that gap? How do we even know that our prayers are answered, anything like that? When we know that it's that divine presence within, then we can feel it directly. So, and we can have this same understanding of this infinite absolute Brahman reality and personal God. I was thinking today, this very nice illustration of each and every one of us is like a little wave on the ocean. And when we see a huge wave, we have tremendous reverence for that huge wave. This will be the avatar. Huh? And when we think of the whole ocean itself, this will be Ishvara with all the tremendous power and strength and everything. And then when we think that really it's all water, what is the substance? This is that Brahman. So from the point of view of Shakti, we're part of this ocean. From the point of view of Vastu, the actual reality, we're one with it. From the point of view of devotion, we're a wave on that ocean. And we can worship the whole ocean. We can worship these, from time to time, these huge waves will come that we call these avatars. Okay, so this is all by way of introduction to this. But I wanted to bring up another point, which is just something of personal interest to me. That who was Swamiji? Huh? Who was he who came? First of all, we, Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, we can ask the same question. We, of course, have our idea of the avatar and Shakti and all of that. Now, Sri Ramakrishna, he had this ability to recognize those who came to him and to tell where they came from. He used to say, what ghor, what house they belonged to, something like that. So we find with Rakal that he was a companion of Sri Krishna. There's so many others that he saw, that Baburam and Radha and Yogan and Arjuna, so many others like that. Now, Swamiji, we have a few different ways of looking at it, which are all very interesting, and I don't think there's any very good fixed understanding of who and what Thakur thought Swamiji was or who he came from. We have, of course, the vision that Thakur had with regard to the Sapta Rishi. So very often we'll say that Swamiji was one of these 7 ancient sages. We all know that vision, that these sages were lost in samadhi, and a little child went and wrapped his little arms around this ancient sage and gently woke him up and said, "I'm going there, you'll have to come." Then some light went, and it went right to Swamiji's house, in Shimla, that area, and that Thakur admitted that, yes, I was that little baby and everything. So we have this idea, one of the 7 sages. Then we have this idea he was the ancient sage Nara. Now, who knows the names of the different 7 sages? Anybody? Huh? There are a couple of different lists. Is Nara one of them? Huh? Is Nara one of them? No. Okay. So already we have a conflict. Huh? So this is the first thing. Then I often think that why did he give Swamiji such a low status? Yes, some ancient sage. Swamiji is much greater than that. Then we have this other idea that Swamiji was Shiva himself. We have several different instances where one very nice story with Swami Subodhananda. Somebody happened to ask him, "Maharaj, you've seen so many great sadhus. Who would you say is one of the greatest sadhus you've ever met?" And he said, Trailanga Swami. That he met him, he was a very highly revered Swami and lived in Benares and everything. So the person who asked was a little curious and said, "What about Swamiji?" He said, "Oh, Swamiji was Shiva himself. Don't compare him to anybody else." And so many of the so many of our Swamis, I have so many nice stories that I've heard. I once attended the birthday celebration of Swami Vivekananda in New York when Swami Pavitranandaji was there. It is the only time I saw him, met him. This would be, 75 or something like that. He passed away shortly after that. And he started to speak about Swamiji, and he just said, Swamiji was so great. And then he couldn't speak. He was, for about a minute, just transfixed that way. And then he gathered himself together and gave a nice talk and everything. And I know one of our other senior Swamis, he also passed away. He used to laugh and say there was only one Swamiji. So when we don't like to, say who's greater than anybody else, but there was something very special about Swamiji. So his other brother disciples, they had so much reverence for him. And here, they're all their brother disciples. Age-wise, most of them were around the same age as Swamiji, some actually a little older, some younger. But tremendous respect, and they had Swami Turiyananda. How he practically worshipped Swamiji. A nice incident that took place in Ridgely Manor, when the two of them were staying there together. There's a house that's there that is not part of it was part of the original estate, but it's not part of the ashram now, the center. You can still go visit, so other people stay there. And Betty Leggett, she and her husband, Francis Leggett, they were the ones who owned the property. She went into the room where they were staying. Swamiji, they set up a bed for Swamiji and for Swami Turiyananda next to each other. And she went and she saw that Swami Turiyananda's bed wasn't used. And she asked him, and he kind of said, "Yeah, I slept on the floor." And then she said, why weren't you comfortable in the bed? And then very sheepishly looked at her and he said, how can I sleep on the same level as Swamiji? Yeah. So this is that kind of love and everything. Swami Atmajnananda was the last person who would have been interested in going to the West to do any type of work like that. He was a yogi, very indrawn and everything. But Swamiji said to him, brother, don't you see I'm laying down my life inch by inch? Won't you do something to help me? And he embraced him. Then he agreed to come to the West. Yeah. So we have so many instances of this tremendous love and respect and reverence that they all had for Swamiji. Swami Premananda, I've told this story many times. He was the one who clashed with Swamiji for various reasons. None of it very serious. They loved each other. They were brother monks. They had tremendous love and respect for each other. But they had different functions to do. Swami Premananda had to run he was manager of the Bellarmad and look after the worship and this and that. And Swamiji was always, he'll start giving some talk on talking about a Brahmin, and he doesn't pay attention to time, anything like that. And many of the direct disciples, they only heard from Thakur first realize God. That who are you to help the world and who are you to give lectures? So when Swamiji said, we'll do some social service work, we'll also do some preaching, they all thought, really? The Thakur didn't tell us to do that, so they had their doubts about these things. Swami Premananda had a very serious illness towards the end of his life, and it was a bedridden, and everyone thought that he would die, but he knew he wouldn't because there's another second story that you all know, that his mother, Baburam's mother, was a great devotee of Sri Ramakrishna. Thakur said, I want your son. I need a pure-souled boy to come stay with me. He wanted him to, of course, be a monk and everything. So she said, does a mother give up a son for nothing? You have to promise me a boon. So he said, all right, what is it? She said, may I not live long enough to see the death of any of my children? So everyone said to Swami Premananda, it looks like your final days. He said, no, it's not possible. My mother's still living. And he recovered. But during this period, he took that time to read all of the complete works of Swamiji, probably all in Bengali, whatever was translated. I don't know how much English he knew. And he said it caused a revolution in his mind. That after that, he only spoke about Swamiji and this idea of service to living beings as worship to God. And he would even say, yes, now I think of myself as Swamiji's disciple. So Swamiji really, he had a very special role to play in bringing Thakur's message to the world and in making it practical. So I want to get to, the important part. So Nara, this ancient sage Nara. Now what happened? This was the first visit that Swamiji made to Dakshineshwar to see Sri Ramakrishna. They had met earlier that Thakur went to a devotee's house in Calcutta, and Narendra was known as a good singer, so they had him go there. He sang a few songs for Sri Ramakrishna, and Thakur was attracted to him, but it wasn't like he said, oh, now I know everything. And it wasn't until he actually went. Thakur had the vision first, and then when Narendra went, and then he started singing this, Mono Cholo Nijo Nikitone. I'll talk about that next Sunday, by the way. And then Thakur grabbed him by the hand and took him out to the northern veranda, and with the folded hands, he said, I recognize you, oh Lord, you've come. And he used this phrase, Nara Rupi Narayana. He didn't say, I recognize you as the great sage Nara. Now, to me, this is very significant. And I have this funny theory. You don't have to accept it, or it's just my own personal little theory, that Thakur somehow awakened this Shakti in Swamiji then, the same way that he awakened this Shakti in Holy Mother when he did the Shodashi Puja. And we all always wonder, what was the Ishta Devata for Swamiji? Rama, that was only in Kashipur. The Thakur gave him this mantra to repeat, that was Anybody else? Shiva. Why Shiva? Did we ever hear about Thakur initiating him with Shiva? Anything? Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Swami Atmajnananda ji? Okay, I will say that his Ishta Devata was Nara. Human. It's the God as human being, Nara Rupi Narayana. That this was, Swamiji used to say, I worship that God that people in their ignorance called man. That this was the object of it. So many times he said that, that beautiful poem that he wrote, the living God. Huh? Yeah, and break all other idols, worship the only God, that the living human being standing before us. Where else will you go to worship? So, Nara Narayan, yes. Nara Rupi Narayan, Nara Narayan. So, anyhow, this is my own personal feeling that Swamiji, this was the attitude that most appealed to him, to see God manifest in human form. There's a very nice incident when he was in San Francisco. This is recorded by Swami Ashokananda, one of his lectures. That they were walking down the street. Suddenly he said to some of the devotees, Swamiji, that, you know, I may have to be born again. Now it's a funny statement. Does he have karma that he has to be born again like that? And they said, why, Swamiji? He said, you see, I've fallen in love with man. Yeah. And for Swamiji, I don't think it was simply seeing the Atman within all beings, seeing the divine presence with all beings. It was a living flesh and blood human being that he loved. And especially the poor, the Daridra Narayana. So we can almost say that that's his Ishta Devata, the Daridra Narayana, even more than Nara Rupi Narayana, the Daridra Narayana, God manifested in the poor. So for him, the highest type of practical Vedanta would be service of God in human form. Shiva Gane, Jiv Shiva. This very famous formula that we have. But there are several other different aspects of this idea of practical Vedanta. I'm going to go through some of these and then I'm going to let you ask questions. You don't have to write it down. I'll just, if you go on too long, I'll tell you to get to the question. And if I can't answer it, I'll ask Swamiji to answer it. Okay. When Swamiji spoke in the West, very often afterwards people would say to him, but Swamiji, is it practical? Now, the people who asked that question, Swamiji was very intelligent. He knew what they were thinking. Sometimes it was a highly critical remark. And sometimes it was the Christian missionaries and everything. Is it practical? What did that mean? What has it done for India? Look at this country, half-naked people running around in terrible poverty with caste and everything. What has it done for India? How practical is it? If it's a great religion, a great teaching, then the country should be very prosperous. Everyone should be very happy, this and that. So sometimes he understood that this was a very pointed, poking type of question. Other times he saw that people were very sincere. So he gave different types of answers, depending upon his mood, depending upon who asked the question, and all of that. Sometimes he would tell them, okay, look, you're saying it hasn't done anything for India. You want to know the real truth? Foreigners came in. There was exploitation, colonization. There are plenty of reasons why India is not, a prosperous country the way it is today. Sometimes he would go on like that. Other times he would say, yes, it's true, but it's not because too much Vedanta, not enough. Not enough. That if these teachings or plenty of it, but not put into practice. That if these things had been put into practice, that society would run much more smoothly than before. So Swamiji felt that Vedanta was the solution, not the problem. Now we can say that the superstition aspect, caste aspect, all of these things which belong to Hinduism, like every other religion. These were part of the problem, but not these teachings of Vedanta. The divinity of the soul, all of these teachings. He felt that this was the real solution, but it had to be applied. So this application, this practical Vedanta. So what did Swamiji mean? Because he used this term himself. Several of his lectures were entitled Practical Vedanta. You'll see little books like that. One thing is that it has to be able to be practiced by everyone. Now, we have our adhikaravada, these ideas that is only for those who have some special qualification. And at one time this meant that it had to be Brahmin caste, it had to be male, it had to be those who had done enough study of other scriptures, lived with the Guru, all of these things. Swamiji felt that this is something, if it's universal, then it should apply to everyone. There shouldn't be any restriction. Of course, we all know that everyone, you have to lead a good moral life and all of these things. There are preliminaries, of course, but not restricted in terms of country or caste or gender or anything like that. So it has to be able to be practiced by everyone. It has to be something universal, not just for these monks who were living in the forest caves. This was also another idea, that the path of Jnana Yoga had to be accompanied by sannyasa. Now, there's truth to that. It's not that there's no value to that and everything, but it became exclusive. And the thing that Swamiji didn't like was exclusiveness and privilege. He had some of his most beautiful lectures are about privilege. He gave a series of 4 lectures in England. They're some of my favorite lectures that way. So he wanted to bring it out of the mountain cave and bring it to the marketplace. These teachings about the real nature of the self. Then he wanted these teachings to permeate every aspect of our lives. Not just our spiritual practice, but our dealings with other people. And this meant that we see the self in all. We have to feel sympathy and love and compassion and oneness with other people. And this had to permeate society. Swamiji, he wasn't political in the ordinary sense. In fact, he was very much against the order getting involved in politics. But he had a very keen understanding of social problems. And especially in India. In the West, he didn't bother too much. But in India, we know that he was so concerned about the uplift of the masses and the education of women and the elimination of exploitation and giving education to everyone. He was very interested in these things, but based all of it on these ideas of Vedanta, oneness, so that from the individual level, we feel oneness with all beings. That means that we have to put it into practice. We don't treat people as strangers. We don't see them as other. We don't look at the externals. We feel that connection with everyone. And from the social point of view, that we try to eliminate these barriers in society. Swamiji's views on caste were also very interesting. He in the beginning, he was always against the idea of hereditary caste. But in the beginning, he kind of defends it. It's an ordinary way of breaking down society. Each person has his role to play and everything. Towards the end of his life, he said, no, I see that this caste is the heart of almost all the problems, social problems in India. So he really, that feeling of equality and sameness and oneness, that won out over everything. And so he really, he wanted to see that. He wanted to see this idea of the divinity of the soul. He didn't want that to be just a philosophical truth. He wanted that to manifest in our own lives, and we see it in ourselves, we see it in others, so we feel that type of oneness. So we have to ask ourselves, if we want to put these things into practice, what are the ramifications of these spiritual ideals that we have? So suppose we accept this idea that the soul is divine. We want to be consistent. We don't want to be the type of people that have some philosophical understanding of things, and yet in our behavior, we're acting as if we're all separate and different and better than other people and all of that. So we want to lead a harmonious type of life. So what are the actual ramifications? One, if we believe that divinity is our real nature, then we have to give up all smallness. We have to give up all weakness. We have this idea of the self, the Atman, as a pure conscious reality, not much to it, a little dry idea. Swamiji saw it as the source of strength. This is more the Upanishadic idea, that Atman, Brahman, the source of life, source of strength. There's a pulsating, tremendous dynamic power within. Of course, he also accepted this idea of the Atman as a pure consciousness, but it was more than that. So if we accept this idea that our true nature is divine, that we're really the self, then we have to manifest strength. And we have to get rid of all smallness, weakness, ideas of separation, and feel that tremendous power within ourselves. So this is one thing. Second thing is that we have to see this in all other beings. We have to see that same divinity in all other beings and have reverence for other people. Reverence. See, it's more than just tolerance and acceptance or anything. That this divinity is manifesting, highest level of divinity is manifesting in other living beings. So we have to feel that, and it has to affect our behavior. It's not enough to just say, yes, I accept this idea, God dwells within all beings. We have to feel that oneness. We have to feel that sympathy. We have to feel that God himself is suffering. We want to remove that suffering and do it as the highest type of worship. So this idea of strength was very important for Swamiji. This little booklet, Teachings of Swami Atmajnananda, that's the book that I read, the first one. That's the one that did everything for me. It's very nice. It has different headings and categories. If you look under strength, you'll see so many beautiful quotations. There's also another book called, what is it called? The little book, Thoughts of Strength or something? Or, huh?
Power of Thought.
Power of Thought? No, it is another. Anyhow, it's a similar type of thing. And so I just want to read a couple of small quotes from Swamiji. He said, the old religion said, no faith in God, one is an atheist. But the new religion says, no faith in oneself means that one is an atheist. Then he said, men are taught from childhood that they are weak and sinners. Teach them that they are all glorious children of immortality, even those who are weakest in manifestation. Let positive, strong, helpful thoughts enter their brains from childhood. Lay yourself open to these thoughts and not to weakening and paralyzing ones. Say to your own minds, I am he, I am he. Let it ring day and night in your minds like a song, and at the point of death declare, I am he. I remember when I first heard these words. I was beside myself. That is truth. The infinite strength of the world is yours. This is the only way to reach the goal, to tell ourselves and to tell everybody else that we are divine. As we go on repeating this, strength comes. He who falters at first will get stronger and stronger, and the voice will increase in volume until the truth takes possession of our hearts and courses through our veins and permeates our bodies. So, this feeling of strength, then we have to have this feeling of compassion, and then this ideal of service. I won't go into it, but Swamiji spoke beautifully about this Seva Yoga, that is actually radically different from Karma Yoga. The very traditional idea of Karma Yoga is that we do certain types of action in order to purify the mind and purify the heart so that we're ready to have some higher type of experience. This is direct worship of God dwelling within other beings. So it's something very, very different, and that was very nice. We don't have to go to the shrine to offer the fruits of our action. We're doing it immediately, right there, with the living God right before us. So Swamiji really pushed this idea of the living God. He said, if this is not preaching a practical God, how else could you teach a practical God? Where is there a more practical God than he whom I see before me? A God omnipresent in every being, more real than our senses. How many people have been to Rameshwaram? Did you ever notice what's written by the two main gates there? Engraved on the side. When Swamiji came back from the West, he landed first in Colombo, in Sri Lanka, and then he, in India, the first place, he went to Rameshwaram. And there was a huge gathering there, and they read a beautiful address of welcome to him. And then his reply, very famous and very, very wonderful, about those who only see Shiva and the Shiva Lingam, that their worship is preliminary. And those who see Shiva dwelling in all beings, this is a real worship of Shiva, service like that. And they engraved these words on right at the gateway into the temple. Such an orthodox place. And Swamiji is really saying that this worship that takes place inside is very secondary. I don't know how they had the nerve to do it or who decided to do it, to put it there, but it's a very wonderful thing. Yeah, it was fantastic. So these ideas of equality, these will go to social equality, to elimination of all types of inequities. Swamiji was so much in favor of education. If those who are poor, those who have a lot of disadvantages, he said if they need 4 teachers, then give them 4 and give the others only 1. So he was an early proponent of affirmative action. Actually, if we want to look at it that way. And again, for him, privilege was the worst thing. He couldn't bear to see people having privilege over others just because of their birth or accident of their social status. Now, I want to get to the other very important idea regarding practical Vedanta, and that is, can we make it practical in our own lives? Can we practice it? Is it practicable? Is it feasible? We all want to know this idea that we say that, okay, the goal of life is God realization. Thakur says it over and over and over again. The goal of life is God realization. How many people here feel that they will attain God realization in this lifetime? Raise your hand. Okay. Yes. Okay. We read in the scriptures that out of thousands, maybe one will try. Huh? And out of that, how many God-realized souls do we know? I mean, we ask ourselves, of course, the real God-realized souls will remain hidden. This is how we can make ourselves feel good. Oh, okay, there are lots of them, but they're hidden. Probably it's a relatively rare thing. You know, they say when we were growing up, we always used to hear that in this country, anyone can grow up to be president. Right? It's true, anyone can grow up, but not everyone can grow up to be president. So what are the odds that we'll attain, okay, let's make it Nirvikalpa Samadhi. How many, now you can raise your hands. See, we have one, okay. We have this faith that they've promised us that we can get liberation at the end of life. That's another thing. That I accept. But that, at least for me personally, that I'll sit down one day and I'll go into Nirvikalpa Samadhi, I don't think so. I think it would have happened already, because I'm going in the wrong direction. My powers of concentration were much better when I was younger. Yeah. Fortunately, we have our path of devotion and all of that. Anyhow, I'm not trying to be pessimistic here, but we have to ask ourselves that is it a realistic goal for us? Now, we may say that, okay, it may not be realistic in this lifetime, but this is the only thing worth having. I'll strive for this. If I don't get it, I'll continue in the next lifetime. We may take that type of attitude. I have a different type of attitude, and that is that suppose we're told that no, we won't get anything, even at the final moment, we won't get anything out of this spiritual life we're leading. And then what will our reaction be? Then why am I wasting my time? Why am I going through all these austerities? Why aren't I going out enjoying the world? Huh? Will we say that? If we do, then we're doing the whole thing wrong. This is the main point. If we are really leading a spiritual life, this is a very good test. Then we should really feel that, yes, this is the life that I would choose regardless of what comes at the end. That to me, this is the most satisfying type of life. Swami, when he was a young monk, they would ask him, they say, have you realized God? He would say, no. And they said, then why are you doing all of this? He said, because I haven't been able to drink this pure water of the Ganga, shall I drink this dirty ditch water? Not that we should look at the world as dirty ditch water, but anyhow, that was his point. That, or because I haven't found Shama, should I go with Ram? Something like that. So, in that sense, this is the most practical type of life because it's the most fulfilling type of life. And we really should have that type of feeling. If we feel that, if I don't get anything, then I've wasted my whole life, I could have enjoyed everything, then we're doing something wrong. So this should be really its own reward. We have to apply the principles of karma yoga even to our spiritual practice, which means that we shouldn't be too results-oriented. Now, we have to temper this, of course, with that tremendous longing for God realization. We need both. There's a very, very funny type of balance that we have to have infinite patience, and at the same time, there's tremendous longing. How we balance them is a very difficult thing, but we need both. If we want to have some real higher type of realization, tremendous longing. At the same time, what type of patience do we have to have? How long will it take to empty the ocean of water with a single blade of grass? And drop by drop. Swamiji says that. Yeah. So we need both of these that way. So practical Vedanta means leading a spiritual life of practice. We hear nowadays this very funny idea that I'm spiritual, not religious. I don't know what it means. I'm quite serious. I think it means that people who don't want to do anything, they can say that. Because for me, spiritual life and spiritual practice are the same thing. If we want to lead a spiritual life, we have to have a spiritual practice, and spiritual practice should be the thing that we cling to. We may or may not be able to develop love of God, but we have to develop love of our spiritual practice. To me, this is very, very important. Our spiritual practice we have to nurture. Like a small child, we have to protect it, we have to nurture it, we have to cling to it. Many of you have heard me say many, many times that what Swami Atmajnananda used to say, bind yourself to a routine. Bind yourself. Now we bind ourselves to a routine. This gives us freedom. Freedom from having to decide each day, what will I do? We bind ourselves to a routine, we do it day in and day out. And the results will come, there's no question about it, if we have that perseverance. The results may not be what we expect. There's fruits of meditation. You know the story of Swami Ramananda. He left the little sweets and fruits in front of them, and then after their meditation, he said, did you get the fruits of your meditation? He would tease them like that. Yeah. So this second great statement of Swami Atmajnananda, that what is the real fruit of meditation? Devotion, bhakti. That this is what comes at the end of a life. If we're sincere, if we really strive, then there's no question that we'll get tremendous fruits from that. So this is this other idea of putting Vedanta into practice in our own lives. That means having a very rich type of life of sadhana. So this should really be the most practical type of life. I'm gonna stop by reading this very nice quote about Swamiji's meeting with someone named Robert Ingersoll. He was a very well-known lecturer when Swamiji was in the United States. He was an agnostic, so not exactly an atheist, but he said there's a question of God, who can answer it? There's nothing verifiable, that why waste our time with it, basically. So Swamiji says, Ingersoll once said to me, I believe in making the most out of this world, in squeezing the orange dry, because this world is all we are sure of. I replied, I know a better way to squeeze the orange of this world than you do, and I get more out of it. I know I cannot die, so I am not in a hurry. I know that there is no fear, so I enjoy the squeezing. I have no duty, no bondage of wife and children and property, and so I can love all men and women. Everyone is God to me. Think of the joy of loving man as God. Squeeze your orange this way and get 10,000-fold more out of it. Get every single drop. So this is Swamiji's practical Vedanta. It makes life so fulfilling. I mean, you know that. I don't have to tell you that, otherwise you wouldn't be here if you didn't know that. Okay, we have a little time for a few questions. If anybody would like to ask anything, you don't have to write it down if you don't want. Yeah, oh, sorry, Jeff.
So, Swamiji, in addition to Shiva and Narayana, he also often expressed great fondness for the Buddha. And I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit and how you see that fitting into his practical Vedanta.
Yeah, I think he was also Buddha. Yeah. Because he used to say that the ideal man will be a combination of the intellect of Shankaracharya and the heart of Buddha. And that was him. That was a perfect description of him. Yeah, Swamiji had the greatest reverence for the character of Buddha, for his self-sacrifice, for his compassion. He said he didn't believe in any God, this and that, it doesn't matter. It was through that tremendous compassion that he could realize the highest in everything. So he would say, yes, I like a little more metaphysics. He said that I appreciate that. He loved the teachings of Shankaracharya, of course, but he accused Shankaracharya of too much orthodoxy. He didn't like the little exclusive nature that adhikara business and everything. And he would he said, but look at the heart of Buddha, how ready to sacrifice his own life to save the life of an animal about to be slaughtered, a goat and everything like that. So, and we know that Swamiji, when he was meditating in his room one time, he had a vision or appearance, whatever, that he sees someone come into his room with an orange robes, and he got frightened and he ran out. And then he thought, why did I run? And he went back in and he was gone. Then he said, and it occurred to me that Buddha himself had come. So, and when he went to Bodh Gaya, of course, he had some experience with Mahapurush Maharaj, which he didn't really reveal much about, but yeah, he had tremendous love for the Buddha, tremendous reverence for him. Yeah. Yes?
I think Swamiji was very successful because he went after practical Vedanta. And when he understood Vedanta, that Vedanta doesn't only talk about soul and mind and other things. It talks about the perfection of life. And when Vedanta was written, there was no unfit people.
What is your question? Okay. Let me mention one other point, that this idea of mukti, that we also have two different ways of understanding that. Who is a Jivan Mukta? We've been discussing this in our Wednesday night class. That these other wonderful things about the teachings of Vedanta, the detachment and not being subject to the passions, reacting too much, anger and everything. All of these things bring us a type of freedom that has nothing to do with final emancipation or liberation or anything like that. We become free from our own demons. We become free from that internal bondage that we have. So this is another very important practical aspect of Vedanta. If somebody says, why should I not get angry? Why should I not have possessions? We can say, oh, it'll block your path to God realization. They say, I don't care about that. But if we tell them, because it won't lead to happiness. And it's true. One of my favorite verses in Gita is, it says that those who are able to withstand this pull, this tremendous force of kama and krodha, that these are happy people, these are the real yogis. That here and now, before the body falls, that they've attained a certain type of freedom. Doesn't mean God realization. They may not care about God, anything like that. But if they're not under sway this way, because we're slaves to our passions, we're slaves to our personalities, all of that, if those who are free from those things have a different type of contentment and happiness in life. So another good aspect of practical thing. Yeah, okay.
So if suppose somebody went to China instead of coming to the West or somewhere else, then would he find the perfect complementary supplementary of what was he looking for? He knew that Vedanta had talked about the hard work, the sincerity, the discipline, and the progress. So many things, which India lacked at that time, but West had. West had all those things. The discipline,
Okay, I got the question. I got the question. Yeah, I would say that China probably fell within the realm of the East. When Swamiji spoke in very general terms, that what the East has to learn from the West and the West from the East, that probably it was this power of organization. It was this interest in progress, social justice, these things that he found in the West in America, to a certain extent in Europe, that he wanted to have as a kind of a marriage between Eastern ideas and Western ideas. But as Swamiji said yesterday very beautifully, these are overgeneralizations. You'll find such a variety of views from every part of the world, different countries, but just in general. Swamiji did feel that the East had something to learn from the West, and the West something to learn from the East. He wanted to see a mutual relationship, each one helping the other, that the West gaining from these wonderful teachings of Vedanta, and India gaining from the power of organization and a little bit of material prosperity also. Yeah.
Swamiji, you asked who can realize the God in their life. I didn't add. But do you agree that in a dramatic situation, in a dilemma situation in our life till date, we have seen the presence of God?
Oh, yeah. We shouldn't feel that it's an either or. Either we realize God, either we succeed or we fail. That we get successes all along the way. And we grow, every step of the way we grow. And our lives become more and more blessed. Yeah, there's no question about that. We shouldn't think that if we don't realize God, we failed somehow. That we gain so much through spiritual practice and spiritual life. That itself becomes a great blessing for all of us. Yeah. And really, we don't know We keep digging and digging and digging. We don't know that the next shovelful, we may feel that ding, that we've hit the treasure. That we don't know. It could be the very next second that we get it. We have to have that attitude. Yeah, and we have to feel some urgency. Swamiji says, there's a very nice Sanskrit verse, which I don't remember, that we should feel as if Yama is holding us by the tuft of hair on our head. Yeah, dharma acharet, when we practice. Yeah. We should feel as if God himself.
Which I always confusing. You also refer to Veda and Upanishad, and Shankaracharya also referred to Veda and Upanishad. What is the difference between the two, basically?
Between what?
Veda and Upanishad.
Veda and Upanishad.
He also referred to, and Shankaracharya also, when he went to 4 zones,
Yeah.
he taught about Veda and Upanishad. What is the difference?
The Upanishad are one portion of the Vedas. One portion of the Vedas, the philosophical portion. So the followers of Vedanta, when they talk about the Vedic tradition, they're more concerned with the Upanishads. The more priestly class and the Mimamsikas and others, they'll be more interested in the yajna and ritual and everything. The Upanishad is free from almost all of that type of ritual, and it's just spiritual ideas. Yeah. Yes, Josiah.
You talked about Swamiji's goal, his desire to broadcast the message or the Vedanta truth.
Yeah.
What can we learn? What insights do we have from his example on how to do that in a way that does not repel others, or in a way that is inviting? It seems like there's some hesitation around evangelizing the Vedanta tradition.
Yeah. We haven't mastered the knack of doing that in the West somehow, because there's a little aversion to publicizing ourselves, and a very strong aversion for any of the monks of the order to place themselves in a position of being a guru that way. So even those who are gurus and give initiation, they'll always say that Sri Ramakrishna is the guru, that his power is acting through the human gurus and everything, and really the big red flag in this whole spiritual community is those who set themselves up as gurus and proclaim themselves as God-realized souls and collect a lot of disciples. So there's a tremendous hesitancy, almost aversion within our tradition to do that. So we suffer a little bit in the sense that we won't get huge crowds of people that come, which is fine. We would rather have the smaller number of very sincere people. Yeah. So, but we would like more people to know about it. Yeah. 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 Okay, then. Okay, last question. Yeah.
Just a quick follow-up on
Yeah.
the questions. More and more of the Swamis are doing things like podcasts and YouTube and
Yeah.
And this does seem to be a really nice way to reach a large number of people with these ideas,
Yeah.
but not in a way, the kind of aggression or pushiness I think it's sometimes we associate with evangelism.
Yeah.
It's not,
Right.
but it is getting broadcast.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a promising development?
I guess. I don't know. I'm not much in favor of this live streaming and things like that and everything. Hi, everybody. Yeah. Everybody's
You can get it lectures.
What's that? Huh?
You know, people can get your lectures too
Oh,
online.
yeah. Yeah. Anyhow. Okay.
How do we reconcile this with Swamiji's example of very proactively, very passionately bringing the message to the people?
I think we ourselves have to be living examples of what happens to someone who puts these teachings, sincerely puts these teachings into practice. And if people see that our lives are worth emulating, and if they see that some transformation has taken place, they see something worthwhile, this is the best way to encourage people to be interested in spiritual life. Of course, we like to make our books available and other things, and yeah, that's also true. But, yeah. Okay, last question. Because Swamiji has to do the concluding session.
Swamiji inspired the youth of India at that time. Is it because of his personality or the words or his powerful speech?
There were different factors. This is an interesting question. How was it that that Swamiji had such a tremendous impact when he went back to India? Part of it, and Swamiji recognized it. Part of it was because never before had somebody, a monk from India, gone to the West and been received the way he was received. And there was a feeling that, if the Swamiji said that I can do more work here than I could ever do in India, because any success I have here is multiplied 1,000-fold in India. So it was, to a small degree, part of the colonial mentality that if the British and the others, if they praise Swamiji, he must be something wonderful. So that was a little bit of it. Otherwise, it was his tremendous personality. Yeah, I mean, he was so huge. His personality was so vast, and his realizations, and just everything about him. I mean, I think if we stood in his presence, we would just wither up. Probably he was like a blazing fire. Yeah. Yeah. Anyhow, okay. Last question.
You said that he always said to have reverence for all and to feel that God is suffering if you make someone else suffer.
Yes.
I mean, he had so much tenderness and so much sweetness in him, and I wonder, is that just through grace that one can get that?
Yeah, very often we hear this statement that how can one have compassion or care for others if one doesn't believe in God? I don't see the logic behind that. In fact, the Buddhist traditions that don't care too much for any metaphysics are the ones that stress compassion more than any of the others. You look at Dalai Lama, this will be his main message and everything. So if we really understand the humanity of the other person, that is a living, thinking, feeling human being just like us, we can also feel the oneness on that level. So it doesn't really have to be the Advaitin. The Advaita Vedantist traditionally doesn't have much of an interest in a personal God, even. But very interesting in Gita, there are different times, I think twice, we get this expression, Sarva Bhuta Hite Rata, engaged in the welfare of all beings, referring to the jnani, not to the bhakta. If you look at the context of it. So the jnani who may not care for a personal God still can feel the oneness with others because of this whole concept of we are one. This unity underlying the diversity. Okay, I'm going to stop now. I'll do one thing though. Swami Atmajnananda he read one little line, or actually a few words, of a very beautiful introduction that Sister Nivedita wrote for the complete works of Swami Vivekananda. That she captured Swamiji's ideal of practical Vedanta so beautifully, just in a few lines. So I'll read that, and then we'll have our final session with Swami Atmajnananda. If the many and the one be indeed the same reality, then it is not all modes of worship alone, but equally all modes of work, all modes of struggle, all modes of creation, which are paths of realization. No distinction henceforth between sacred and secular. To labor is to pray. To conquer is to renounce. Life is itself religion. To have and to hold is as stern a trust as to quit and to avoid. Okay, now, Maharaj, I request you to come, and this will be the concluding session that you can do whatever you want. You can ask them questions, they can ask you questions, you can sum up everything. or you could sing a couple of songs. It's completely up to you. When did we start applauding at the end of the? This never happened before. Yeah, it's not necessary to applaud.
Friends, it was nice experience this time particularly. I have never seen a guest beginning the session and ending also. Generally the vote of thanks comes from the...
Oh, that will be afterwards.
Okay, still one more item is there. Okay. I thought I would thank myself, but before that. So there, I was writing some question for Maharaj, but I thought what he was saying that was more important than my question. So that I was wondering if I would remember it correctly that in the Mahabharata there occurs a verse which says Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam saranam braja. Or another verse comes there that yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. Which part of the Mahabharata it comes? I was wondering if I would remember that.
It's in Ramayana. It's in Ramayana.
Do you remember where? Yeah, that is a trap actually. That was a trap to know.
Not Ramayana.
No, I didn't ask you that. That was a trap to test if you are studying the scriptures under him properly. Well, you are right that it occurs in the Bhagavad Gita. But I was wondering if Bhagavad Gita belongs to Mahabharata or not. Really? Then I was also right. Okay. So these are all tricks you can play to find that we understand things properly. So... yeah, Maharaj they were referring to these ideas that Swamiji tried to break the barriers between the castes, all types of exclusive ideas. So even before that, I would just add to what Maharaj said. Even before that, during the time of this Mahabharata, as you find in the Gita, that Sri Krishna also came across such type of problem. So his famous sentence occurs there, Striyo Vaishyas Tatha Shudra Stepi Yanti Parangatim. So actually speaking, in the Vedic tradition, very orthodox tradition of the first half of the Vedas, there it is allowed that even the Vaishyas can also read the Vedas. Because Traivarnikanam Upanitanam, three varnas, three castes, actually three professions. And Upanitan, they have the right to get the sacred thread, also right to study the scriptures. Now, just look at this history here, Sri Krishna is referring to. Even during Sri Krishna's time, the Vaishyas are also taken out of that. So they were also denied the right to realize. So things started getting diluted. That's what Sri Krishna himself refers to in the Gita when he says that Sa kale neha mahata yogo nasta parantapa. So during the long passage of time, the yoga that I had taught to a great tradition, this yoga has lost its vigor, got diluted. And you know, Shankaracharya wrote a very, very forceful commentary on that. He said it got diluted, got lost because it has been preached by people who have not practiced it. This is the case even today. If we preach something without practicing, that becomes very theoretical, and the people who are preaching, they themselves are confused about it. So that is why Shankara says, people who preached them, they had goals other than spiritual ones. So therefore, They had some different goals, material goals, political goals, but not spiritual goals. So that is how, during the long passage of time, things lose their vigor, their strength. So Sri Krishna is now telling forcefully that I was that original teacher who taught that yoga in the beginning, and the same I have come back to teach that yoga, so you will get original thing from me. And so during his time, the history says that these things started falling apart, and the Vaishyas also denied the right to realize. These ladies were denied, Sudras, they were denied, like that. But Sri Krishna says that they too will realize. So that is how we can look at these things, that how things happen, and that is the natural phenomenon, that is a general thing. So I was reminded of that. Now someone asked me about all these practicalities, can I give some gist of what exactly we can do. As I said in the very beginning that the Guru has already said what to do, follow that one, that would help us tremendously. And that is the only way, there is no other way. That practice. Abhyasa and Vairagya, wherever you go, this is only one thing, Abhyasa, Abhyasa, Abhyasa. Even in medical field, and we know that this rehabilitation therapy, that is nothing but practicing the same thing again and again. Somebody came up to me and said, Swami, you told that japa means you have to repeat the same thing again and again. So how does it help? I said, just look at your life. We say that we live many days on this earth, but someone has said we live only one day and repeat the same day so many times. You look at your life, every day the same thing. How do you go along with that type of habit? In the morning, same type of things you do, whole day, same type of routine. Perhaps maybe towards the end of the week, we do something different. That on Friday, very quickly we come away from our office and pack up our tents and etc. and go out to enjoy life. Now we wanted to enjoy life inside the house, so we built nicely protected homes. That's what we have learned as human beings. But the birds, they are doing the same type of nest every year. They have not developed on that. No special technology developed about their homemaking. But in our case, you see, we have made nice homes, comfortable homes. But we are not happy with that. We go out to enjoy comfort or life there and pitch our tents everywhere, and then we enjoy life. So at the end of the week, we do something different. They are called Naimittika karmas, but they also repeat themselves every week. And then you look at your calendar, every year, same type of events repeating themselves. So are you not bored about that? Same thing you are doing every day, you don't get bored. And every day you look at the same face. At least in the mirror you see the same face. And you are happy about that. So the repetition is the only way. There is no other way. Repetition and practice, that is what is called practice. So there is one therapy which is called rehabilitation therapy. But this therapy has a bad connotation about it because it is forced upon you. Rehabilitation means you have to join that therapy course, and there you have to follow methodically what the organizers or the guides say. So then the question of free will comes. Can't we do it ourselves? Yes, of course. But we all know that it is very difficult. Why? Suppose I am a smoker and I have decided to quit smoking. There is a fun about it, humor about it. One person said, this fellow cannot quit alcohol even once. In my life, I have quit smoking for 100 times. So this is not called quitting. Therefore, the problem is that our self-effort is there. Yeah, you have been given the right to do it by yourself. But look at yourself, how can you do it? So then we try to accuse something else. That's what Arjuna tries to do in the Gita. He says, being compelled by someone, as it were, we have to follow. Follow means we have to fall back into the bad habits. So how to get rid of this? Sri Krishna says by the only method which is called practice. Abhyasena tu kaunteya Vairagya means if we start doing practice, then Vairagya will happen automatically. If I start going towards the east, then my distance from the west will increase automatically. We don't need to think about that. This is the positive side of it. So self-effort is, okay, welcome, you can do it. But we have seen that it is really, really difficult. And difficult because of one thing, that we lack in willpower. That is what Sri Krishna says very, very pointedly in the end of the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, when he is narrating the traits of the person who is established in yoga, in wisdom. So he says that we have some temptations outside. And our senses, our mind, they try to go out and to enjoy those temptations outside. Now actually these temptations are nothing but the viruses or bacteria that eat up our willpower, that attack our immune system. Willpower is nothing but our immune system. And when we get attached to the things which are outside, they are like viruses, they are like germs, and they attack our willpower, which is our immune system. So if you do not grow our immune system, then the problem is that we will be vulnerable to all these things outside. And therefore our self-efforts will fail. So how to grow this willpower? Again the same question comes, how to grow this willpower? By practice only. Willpower is a learnable skill. It is not that you buy some willpower from CVS and say that I am lacking in willpower, please give me a packet of willpower. CVS gives you $10. It is not like that. Willpower you have to grow by yourself. It grows from within. So, but by practice only, by small practices. Okay, I will try with one. Daily I smoke 10 cigarettes. Actually, I means not I don't smoke actually, sorry. So, but 10 cigarettes. Okay, quit one by one. So that actually enhances your strength. And that creates more depth in your line between the neurons, as we were speaking about in the morning. So it becomes deeper and deeper, the samskaras grow deeper and stronger. So we contribute to the strength of the willpower. Therefore, start with a small thing. You don't need to do a very big thing in the beginning. So once of our Swamis told one junior Swami, do not expect extraordinary behavior from ordinary people. That is a big mistake we do. We think that everybody is extraordinary. And we think that we ourselves are extraordinary. And when we become extraordinary, we can't do ordinary things. And that is the problem. We don't begin things. So, willpower can be learned with the help of small things. Small works you do, once you quit one, then next you quit two. That is how you will see that the yoga exercises they are teaching. Every day, bit by bit, you gain in your flexibility and then you practice yoga. So this way we can withdraw our mind from outside, and then the germs also slowly get tired of calling you. You are not going out, they are calling from outside. And therefore they get tired and then they quit this place and go away and search for some other pasture. So it would happen like that. And then there are several other ways. But this is one thing about our own self-effort, if we depend too much on our own self-effort. Now there is a nice story. Once I read long ago that one small child was trying to turn a big stone. So he tried long time but he failed. Then he stood up, he was perspiring. Then his father, who was standing nearby, he asked him, are you sure that you have applied all the available energy to turn it? Then the child became very upset. He said, how do you suspect that? I am perspiring, I am tired, I am out of breath. Then the father patted on the back of the child and said, no, I am not suspecting that. But I am telling you, my help was available. You could have asked for my help. So we should not be that arrogant, that egoistic, that I will do it myself. Whatever available help are there, we can take advantage of that. That is very important. Many a time we don't understand this. And we think that we can lead a very individualistic life. It is not possible. All our individual lives are based on group living. The society is there, the government is there, everything is there all around us. Only by shutting our door, we cannot shut ourselves off from these truths. We are always connected. And if we are not connected by this, but we have our cell phones, iPhones are there, iPads, iPods, you can connect yourselves with outside world. So inside you are completely connected with the outside world. But we are denying that fact and saying that we are individuals. So we can take the help, and as we have all discussed here, that we can take the help from God. That is the most benign help you can expect in this world. God is there, He is the most powerful, accept it and pray. And Sri Krishna also says, you don't have to accept God as the very first condition. He says, Daivancha eva atra panchamam. Fifth condition of your self-effort is Daivam, the God. 4 other conditions belong to you, that is your self-effort. You do it yourself. But keep a little bit space for God at a corner. Let Him just wait there until and unless you press the bell, He will not come. You just press He's a bell boy, you press the bell, please come and help me to do this. Then He will do. He will just lift your load. That is the truth about God in our life. We just want Him as a means, not as a goal. That is the problem. That He will come and help me, and then after that we forget Him. But still Sri Krishna says, well, that is also acceptable. Keep a small space for me. Daivancha eva atra panchamam. That is the 5th condition for your self-effort. Keep a small space for God. And that also won't cost you much money, as they were discussing. And then another help is that help from a guide, guru, a practicing spiritual person. A person who is practicing spiritual life for a long time, that person may not have realized the whole truth. There are gradations in the Brahmajnana also in the scriptures we read. Brahmavid, Brahmavid Varyan, Brahmavid Varishtaha. So if someone realizes Brahman, what is the difference between that person and someone who realizes more of Brahman? What is this idea? No, some people who are following this path of Brahman, as I said yesterday, that the Samadhi has been divided into different parts. The seven types of Samadhis. 8th one is the final. The 7 types of Samadhis, that Savitarka Samadhi, Nirvitarka Samadhi, Savichara Samadhi, Nirvichara Samadhi, Sasmita Samadhi. Like that, Samadhi has been divided. Each and every part of our endeavor is called Samadhi because it is towards achieving Samadhi. Therefore, those who are leading a spiritual life, practically leading a spiritual life, they have gained at least enough realization to share with others, to guide others. So therefore, you don't need to wait for Sri Ramakrishna to appear before you and then you ask this question, have you seen God? That question was asked to Ramana Maharshi. Then Ramana Maharshi smiled and looked at the person and said, my dear, you are not Vivekananda and I am not Sri Ramakrishna. So this thing has happened only once. And now to get a PhD and to get a great knowledge of physics, you don't need an Einstein to come as your guide or as your professor. The professor who has studied Einstein and has understood some of his theory, that professor is competent enough to guide you. That's all. So therefore, this guide means he who has some practical knowledge, not theoretical knowledge. And that person is enough to guide us. No, we don't need Sri Ramakrishna to come to guide us. And this is about our self-effort. We should not deny the availability of help in our life to help us grow in spiritual life. And third one is very important, that is everywhere people try to practice. That I have my shrine at home and there Sri Ramakrishna is still sitting there. So why do I need to go to ashram or to go to this temple? That is fine, but what are you thinking at your home? That is a place where condensed materialistic ideas are there. You are trying to change that vibration there, but you are alone trying there. And here 150 people trying to change the material thoughts here, and the vibration changed. When you sit here in the morning, you will really feel that strength of that condensed vibration helping you in your meditation. So therefore, Narada has said in his Bhakti Sutra, Tirthi Kurvanti Tirthani. Tirthi, the pilgrims, those who go to the place of pilgrimages, they enhance the strength of those places. So whenever someone goes there, will be able to immediately tap to that source. That vibration will be available. So more condensed and stronger vibration will be available. That is why you have to go. So, and here when you come in contact with many like-minded people who are leading a harmonious life, you just come to this place and you see the people are working there without quarreling between themselves. They are serving food. They are not quarreling. They do quarrel, but not in front of people. At least that much patience they have. That much patience they have. They do quarrel, but they, in the company of many noble minds, our strength to quarrel with each other means weaker and weaker and weaker. That way we lose something here. We gain something and we lose something. We lose our ego. We lose our vanity. We lose our mainly jealousy. Jealousy. So all these things are very practical. So they say that what we were discussing the first day, that satsang, when you are in the company of good people, like-minded people, where we are thinking good thoughts. Because when many people are sitting together, even if you don't like some thoughts, but you have to conform to this group ethics, and slowly you learn and slowly you develop that way. So this has got a tremendous practical applicability in our life. So satsang is therefore highlighted in every sphere of our endeavor. Even when we are working together in any other place also, when many people are working together, the strength that is created, that is tremendous. That is why you see that when the military would be marching, when they are marching over a bridge, they are not allowed to march there. Because the rhythmic steps, they create such a tremendous vibration that the bridges will simply collapse. Now crumbled into small powders, dust. That much tremendous force will be created if we are following the same type of ideal. So Sangachadvam, it says that we move together. Our minds should be going together. So togetherness creates that much of strength. That is why holy company is necessary. Company of like-minded people. We will not be that much holy that when we come into satsang, we are so holy that the gods and angels will be hovering around us and we will be escorted into this. No, we come as very ordinary, worldly people. Come into this holy company and sit together. But when we go out, the result is really mystical. Even the meditation, the procedures that are being taught by different schools of religion, they are nothing but mechanical processes. Until you realize, until you attain at least dhyanam, proper dhyanam, and until you realize samadhi, you are doing everything mechanically. But the result that you are getting inside, and progressive result that you are getting inside, that is unexpected. That is mystical, really mystical. Process is very mechanical, result is mystical. That is how the group living, group singing, group meditation, these things help us tremendously. We do not understand that, but after some days we will simply realize that a big difference has been created in our life. So that these are very practical ways we can just try. We don't need to spend much money, but rather we can get good food also here free. And our Swamiji is there. So these are a few ideas. I don't have other questions. And as I said, I would ask you questions, so that I asked in the beginning. that yes, Gita also belongs to the Mahabharata. And then, Maharaj, at what time do you want to end this? 3, 5? 3 o'clock.
You can take as long as you want.
No. Now this will end here. So that now I want to present a picture before you. Try to imagine it because I don't have my computers, etc. with me. So just try to imagine in the this background of your mind that the picture of a Hercules. Now this is a test, you have to tell me the name. The Hercules is there is a big globe on top, he is carrying that, very strong muscle man, and then he is carrying it. Now if I put the picture of the Vedanta Center, Washington DC, into that globe, now see, what? I will Photoshop that one, that's no problem. But I want to Photoshop the face of that Hercules. Now tell me what should be the face and give me the photo of that. Thank you very much. And thank you all for your attendance. I am very happy to be here to share some thoughts with you. And it was a very joyful moment because I found that nobody is sleeping up till now. And many thanks to Atmajnananda ji, that he is a really very good host. Though a bit, what should I say? He would he would see that his money is properly utilized, and so that kind of a person he is. Okay, all right, we accept that, and so. But I love to be in the company of devotees here, monks here. You are all nice people, and I thank you very much for your time and attention, and I thank the Swamijis for their hospitality. And by the way, the answer is the face of Swami Atmajnananda. Thank you.
Okay, let Swamiji finish first. We have to do word of thanks, then we can have closing song.
Everything has to come to an end. This is our 32nd annual retreat, if my reckoning is correct. And some of those people who were there at the first annual retreat at the New Windsor retreat facility are still here by the grace of God. I happen to be one of those. This retreat began as a Memorial Day retreat, but after some time I shifted it to Labor Day because it's more convenient, more people could come during the Labor Day weekend. All these years we were doing in outside places, many years we did in the New Windsor facility, then 1 year in the new Harper's Ferry facility, and a couple of years in the Jewish Community Center in Reisterstown, Maryland, and last couple of years in our own beautiful Vedanta Center. And what I noticed is this year the attendance has been the largest it has ever been. And all of you have come from many different places, faraway places. We thank you for coming and participating in this retreat. First of all, I'd like to express our heartfelt gratitude on behalf of Swami Atmajnananda and all of us at the Vedanta Center to Swami Atmajnananda Maharaj, who has come from Germany, accepting our humble invitation. And in Germany, as you know, it's very difficult to do Vedanta work. The language is different, people are not used to this. In spite of those difficulties, Maharaj has been doing tremendous amount of work. I went once and saw 3 different places where Vedanta activities Swamiji has started. It's growing, and we thank him wholeheartedly for coming, and we hope Maharaj will come back as soon again and participate in our activities. Thank you, Maharaj, for coming. And thank all of you, all the volunteers who helped us to make this program a very successful program. Without the help of volunteers, will be very difficult to do anything. All the volunteers who helped in many different ways, various ways. We thank all of them. And all of you, please stay for a photo. We need a group photo of everybody who came here. We want all of you to be present for an annual retreat group photo and have a safe journey back. And please come. Before I conclude, I'd like to remind you of our activities. We have classes 5 days a week besides Sunday service. 5 classes a week besides Sunday service. Tuesday morning, we have class on the teachings of Swami Vivekananda. Right now, Maharaj Atmajnananda is teaching this book, Talks with Swamiji, Swami Shishya Samvad. Wednesday morning class is on the teachings of Brother Lawrence, Practice the Presence of God. Thursday morning class, study of Bhagavad Gita. Wednesday evening class of Viveka Chodamani. And Friday evening class, we have Gospel Bhagavad Gita alternate. And last weekend, Life of Holy Mother. And Sunday service. Sunday service begins at 11 o'clock. I'm saying this because many of you have come here for the first time from out of town. So every Sunday service, we have a lecture, devotional singing, refreshments. One of the resident Swamis or visiting Swamis, all of you, please try to come. This week, next weekend, a week from next Sunday, September 8, Atmajnananda will be speaking on a stranger in a strange land. At the end of this month, we'll be having the pleasure of receiving Swami Nishpapanandaji Maharaj from St. Louis Center on the 29th of September. And he will be speaking on the avatar and the element soul. Ramnam will be first Saturday every month. On this month, it will be this Saturday, September 7, 7:30 p.m. After the evening arati and meditation, there will be potluck dinner after Ramnam. Please try to come to all these programs. Once again, thank you very much. Have a safe trip back, and please come again and visit us.
We'll meet on the front steps.
Photo will be outside near the entrance on the steps. Let us all go there for photo. I'll say the closing prayer. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Om Shanti 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 Sarvam Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.